So now I want to use these pieces to break up a sphere. So basically, let's get out of there. One more thing that I had forgotten quickly is just to add gravity, really. So you kind of want to add gravity to this, right? And another thing you might want to do as well is change the glue or change the bounciness on the plane, or the collision strength, sort of the bounce. So, but I'm not going to do that right now, so I'll just leave that to do that. So let's get out of there, and I'm going to hide this guy and those two as well. And let's have a look. I'm gonna dive into my geofracture, and I'm gonna sort of copy this entire branch, right? Because what I need to do, if I control copy, control V, if I paste this down, what I need to be able to do, shift L to lay it out, what I need to do is change my extrude value so that it goes a lot higher, so that I can put an object inside and then sort of cycle it through my cookie operation. So in the poly extrude, let's change this from 0.3 to something like 6, so it's a lot higher, right? The other thing I want to change is my divisions. I want to change my divisions to something like 8. So if I just look at it now, you can kind of see that there's a lot more, subdivisions. This will come in handy when we're doing the cookie operation. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, turn off your points, and go out of this for each loop again. Make sure to turn off your points. Otherwise you end up with a massive amount of point and your scene will slow down a lot. Okay, so let's have a look. This is all fine. The only thing I want to do is rename this. Instead of saying 2dobs RBD, I'm going to call this 2cookie. Okay. Now I'm going to create a new geometry object and bring it in. So geometry. Let's call this GeoCookie. Let's go inside. Let's get rid of that guy. Let's bring in an object merge and let's search for our object. So the one that I'm looking for is under fracture and it is 2cookie, right? Okay, the other thing I need is, obviously I will need a sphere, right? Let's make this into a polygon. Let's have a look. There's that. Let's make him a bit bigger. And I want to reposition him as well, so let's go inside of its settings. And let's switch to wireframe so you can kind of see him a bit better. And I'm gonna move him so that, like over there, I kind of remember there are a lot of little small pieces, and it's kind of cool to see this being broken up, not really evenly. So let's move it, sort of there, and let's move it up so it's inside. So that's all the way inside. And let's move it a little bit so that it's something like over there. Okay, so my sphere is completely inside of my geometry, right? And what I'm going to do now is start my for loop. So let's lay down a for each. One more thing is I need to have something to reference my groups from. So what I'm going to do is just lay down a quick null and call it fractured geometry. Fractured geo. Link that up there, link that up into the second, and link that up in there. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm not actually going to use the first input. I'm not going to use the looping as such, the each operation. And I'm going to change this from group to number. And I'm going to start at 0, and for now let's just loop to 10. We'll change this afterwards. Okay, and let's go inside. So there's our each. We're just going to stay away from that, but I'm going to use my second and my third input. Alright, so let's just say delete these guys. So delete anything I don't need will be deleted. So delete non-selected. Now I could say I could choose one of my groups, so let's just have a quick look. And there is one of my groups. So I'm going to build up my expression again. So Alt-E. Let's build up that expression that we've been using so far. And that starts off with prim group mask. So prim group mask of which operator? Well, we're going to go up one level, up another level, and then we're going to find our null. So this is the one we want. From the names of our groups, we're going to be looking for any group that starts with piece, right? And that will return my string with all the groups in it. So now I'm going to put my argument expression, my arg expression around that, and as a second input, so to kind of cycle through the arguments, I'm going to use a stamp, right? So the stamping operation will get my for value of the parent, right? Second argument is the value itself, so for value, and then don't return anything, so it could be 0, so not, you know. And one final thing is, because it should return a string, is we need to put in our backticks, right? And just say accept. Okay, so that's plugged in. So now let's have a quick look if that's working. We should be seeing some of our pieces in there. Delete the non-selected ones by primitives. That's probably because this is still there, right? So there's a few of our pieces, right? So make sure your object is not referenced anymore. There's a few of our pieces, and we can kind of increase this or again decrease this. Now let's do the cookie operation. Where's our sphere? There's our sphere. So we should start to see some intersections, you know, coming forth from this. So to do the cookie, lay down a new cookie. In the first input, use that one. In the second input, use input 3, so that's the sphere. And we want to, instead of the union, we want to have the intersection. Okay, so let's have a look at that. And okay, so we start to have, you know, the sphere, the pieces of the sphere a little bit. Obviously we don't have all the pieces yet, and there is something else which is actually more important going on as well. At the moment, let's see if I can try to get a piece that sort of intersects better rather than using this stamping operation. As an example, just to show. So I'm going to get rid of that and just, let's see, excellent. So now I've got a piece, right? I'll switch this around again, but now I've got a piece that basically intersects the cube. Note that it is intersecting the cube, and it's so we're getting a bit of the information of the piece itself, and we're getting at the top and at the bottom a little bit of information from the sphere. Problem, however, is, as you can see, if I turn on my point numbers, is at the edges, right? There are 2 points. There are 2 points sitting on top of each other each time. So basically, all these points at the edges are double. So I'm going to fuse them together. So let's just show that. There are 65 points at the moment, and if I fuse them together and put your display flag on that, I've got 49 points left, right? So that's quite useful, because otherwise the top parts and the bottom parts will just fall out when we do the dynamics, and we don't want that. They shouldn't be separate objects. Okay, so now we need to get the correct number. So I'm just going to use my expression which I had from my delete. So I'm gonna plug my delete back in there, get my expression from my delete, copy it, go up one level, and let's paste it in there. Right? Let's bring up our expression editor. Let's get to our argument. I'm not going to use arg, but I'm going to use argc, so count the arguments of the prim group mask. That's all fine. Let's get rid of the stamp again. So just get rid of that. And one more thing is -1, right? Because we start at 0. So let's just get rid of that. So accept that. Okay. Let's jump out of there quickly. Let's have a look. Okay, what's going on there? -1. That's not good. Let's have a look. Why is that not working? Well, it's not working because it returns 0. It cannot find this geometry at this level, so let's just put it at the correct level. So that should work. And that seems to be working now. So it's calculating the cookie. And there we go. And at the moment, we've got our piece of geometry, and as you can see, it's been sort of divided up into, you know, random sort of chunk-like pieces. Now, at this point, I'm going to prepare to transfer it to DOPS. So again, the same thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of all the groups that are currently on there. So I'm going to call this group delete. I'm going to disable that. I'm going to call this, well, actually we don't need to call that because we're not making it. go to the delete tab, right, and put this to star. Okay, so all the groups are now being deleted. There should not be any groups. There's no groups. That's good. So let's do the connectivity thing again. So check on their connectivity, make it a primitive attribute. Let's have a look there and do the partitioning. Okay, so now we can call this piece underscore dollar class as such. And we've got a whole bunch of groups now, right? And all the pieces are nicely inside of them. So let's have a look. If I add a null and say two dops, I don't know, I'll call this two dops cookie, so I kind of can distinguish. Okay, so this, hopefully this should work. It's a bit fiddly sometimes. You know, I might have forgotten something. So let's save it at this point before going into dynamics. Save it. One of the things I might end up doing as well is just move it a bit higher off the ground and rotate it slightly. So let's add a transform. So it's got some impact force. So let's center the pivot. So $CX, $CY, and $CZ. So now I can rotate around that point and just maybe sort of rotate it like this a little bit and like that. So you can see all these small little pieces over there, and they'll start to, you know, they start to fall, and then it'll just break open quite nicely. Okay, so that'll do. Let's go back up and let's do our dynamics. So there's our object, and I kind of want to make it into a dynamic object. Okay, so let's just, I've turned all of these off, don't want that, and hopefully it's going to be created correctly in the correct space. So let's make a new dop network. Let's have a look. Call this cookie dops. Right. This is where we'll put our stuff. It might not end up in there in the beginning, but we'll see. So this object RBD fractured. I'm not gonna glue it together this time. Just make it into a fractured object. So let's have a look. Okay, it's not in there, so it might be in the other one. Let's have a look where this guy went. So it went into wall pieces rigid body, so I'm gonna have to find it from my wall pieces. So basically this guy, where is he? There's my cookie geometry. So I can just take this guy away together with the RBD solver, so I can get that guy, this guy, and the gravity. Copy, go up, or rather not copy, sorry. Let's just get this guy out of there, the cookie, and let's put it in there as such. Okay, so we've got our geometry now. What I want to add is a little bit of gravity to this, so let's add some gravity. I want to add a RBD solver. Where is he? RBD solver is just out of screen, but just add a solver. I want to add a ground plane, so let's just add a ground plane. I want to merge them together, these two, and I want to make sure that left inputs effect right in a collide relationship. That's fine. I also want to make sure that this is a static object, and that's about it for this. Now I need to make sure that my paths are corresponding, so my cookie dops, copy that and put it inside of my dop import. So instead of there, put cookie dops, wall pieces. This is going to be changed as well. The names are all the same, so that's fine. Okay, and let's have a look at what this gives me. So I'm going to save it again at this point, right? And let's see. So it should start falling down. And oops, yeah, adjust my timeline. Okay, do that again, and calculates onwards. Okay, this might take a while depending on, you know, the power of your machine, but as you can see, it looks like it is working. I'm not sure if it's giving any errors, so let's turn this. So this looks like it is working. So let's just let this play a little bit further. Now in the beginning it needs to calculate your SDF, so that's for signed distance function, which will define the accuracy of your pieces, right? If you want to increase that so that the collision or the intercollisions are more accurate, or the avoidance of thereof, then you can do that basically in your object, in your fractured object. But so this is basically the process of breaking an object up. And so I'm gonna pause this for a second and then do the same thing with the output driver. So we can just take that geometry now and let's add a ROP output driver to this, right? And let's use the BGO. Let's name this one cookie sim as such, and then let's also put our padding in there, accept this, same thing, new file, same thing, copy this, put it in there. You can make all of this stuff relative and it'll all feed through. I'm just gonna render say till frame 30, so I got something to sort of skip through, and let's just render this guy out there. Okay, so since it was cached already, this is going on slightly faster now. Alright, it's almost done, 29 and 30. Okay, and this should allow me now to scrub through the timeline. So if I turn this to 30, let's take a look at our file. I'm going to turn off the visibility of my DOPS network. I don't need that anymore. And there's my cookie. So basically, you can see the sphere object. It's like it's falling, and bam, it just breaks apart. So it just breaks apart. Now there are some graphical issues which I don't know if that's easy to fix with a cusp on the end of it, but you want to try that. Let's see if that works. Just a cusp. Oops, that's in a facet. And let's just cusp polygons, so we really give them hard edges. So now you can see that smooth jittering is gone. Now you do not want to facet before importing into DOPS, because what faceting really does, right, is if you can see somewhere over there, if you can see what it really does is, there's my file sub, there's my points, right? And let's just have a look at like say this point at the end over there, this point 1982. What it does is it will separate, it will separate these points. So now we've got several points there, and that was the very thing we wanted to avoid by fusing them together, if you remember in the for each sub at the end. So I mean, this is just purely for the looks, so don't really need to do that, but you can. Just gonna bypass it for now. Okay, and this is now the end of this entire tutorial section. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot, and yeah, quite cool stuff, I would say so. So experiment a lot and have fun.